Oh, I didn't see this thing.
There we go.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Zimmerman, President of the Board of the Premium Cigar Association, founded in 1933 as the Retail Tobacco Dealers of America. The Premium Cigar Association is the oldest, largest, and most active trade association representing and assisting retailers and manufacturers of premium tobacco products and their suppliers. The PCA represents over 3,000 retail stores who employ over 30,000 retail workers. In addition, the PCA works with over 200 manufacturers, suppliers, and distributors of premium cigars and accessories. We are proud to be convening this first International Policy Summit, and I would like to thank Senator Marco Rubio, Bob Menedez, Minister Baisano of the Dominican Republic for their remarks today, and the remarks on behalf of Ambassador Fernando Suaza of Honduras. I would now like to turn this time over to the Executive Director of the Premium Cigar Association, Scott Pierce, for more detail on the summit. Scott?
Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you everybody for joining us today. As Greg mentioned, this is our first ever International Policy Summit, and kind of what does that mean for the Premium Cigar Association? Well, really, as we've noticed, and we've noticed this over the past several years, maybe even more than a decade, we've known that this is really an international community that truly loves and appreciates this passion and this hobby of premium cigars. But as we drill down into this more on a policy level, there's a lot of interest that combines and connects all of us that love the premium cigar industry. It's not just simply your local tobacconist. There's a lot that's involved in delivering and curating, creating all of these fantastic premium cigars and the products that arrive at the shelves and then ultimately into your humidors at your home and that you choose to smoke. So there's a lot of implications that are at play when we talk about international trade and we talk about the movement of goods from different countries. And so we look obviously at the primary countries that are involved within the premium tobacco industry and how that really affects their local economies, as well as how it connects to the U.S. economies and the importance that we really play in so many different lives and in so many different ways. We often talk of things like supply chains, and really it's more complicated than that nowadays. It's more of a web of connectedness, and that's no more true than it is in the premium cigar industry. And as anybody knows that's looking at the industry right now, obviously we know with demand up and we're trying to get products, et cetera, so on and so forth. Things like continuous good trade relations ensures that when we do run into times like we're in right now, when we pick back up and when things get moving, we can assure that we're getting products where they need to be. So that's why we wanted to convene this, to take stock of the impact that this industry has on various economies around the world, and in particular, from a U.S. perspective, what our role should be in connection with these different countries and with their trade missions. So on that note, I'd like to introduce one of the panelists that's going to be joining us today and who's helping lead this initiative with us is Mr. Reinhard Pohorec. And I totally butchered your last name. I'm so sorry for that. But Reinhard from Light 'em Up Lounge, thank you so much for joining us. I know that this has been something that's been a big passion for you, and this is something that you've kind of helped spearhead with us. So I'd just like to kind of turn this time over to you now for your introduction and for your comments before we head into some of our keynote addresses.
It is a pleasure and honor for me on behalf of the Light 'em Up World community and family, but also as the president of Cigar Rights of the World, to help contribute to this global message of unity and strength from the premium cigar industry. It's the most stunning and enlightening ecosystem that we're all honored to experience. We talk about the global family of the leaf, the brothers and the sisters, but it's only when we truly live those values and when we stay true to those principles that we set for ourselves and that we love to communicate, when we can send out a strong message and symbol to all the world, to the people who love cigars, to those who might join this wonderful world at a later stage and experience cigars anew for themselves, and to all the other people that probably haven't heard of the fascinating experiences and the mesmerizing moments that we're entitled to with the premium cigars that we are fortunate to experience. It is a pleasure and honor for me to help organize this first ever virtual International Cigar Policy Summit and I'm delighted to welcome all the people joining us from around the world, no matter where you are, late at night in Asia, afternoon or evening over here in Europe, early afternoon in the United States. We are all connected. We are all together in this. And I wish all of you, ladies and gentlemen, everybody watching, a fabulous program, a fabulous afternoon together with us. And in that regards, let the games begin.
And I want to welcome you to the International Forum on the Economics of the Premium Cigar Industry. Now, this is a tough thing to do virtually because premium cigars are best enjoyed with friends and good conversation in person. They also play an important role in Florida's economy and America's economic relationship with countries throughout the Western Hemisphere. Here in the United States alone, the premium cigar industry helped create 30,000 jobs and supports over 200 small business manufacturers. Domestic manufacturers export over 30 million of products to Europe, to Asia, and elsewhere across the globe. The premium cigar industry also generates irreplaceable economic activity in the Caribbean basin, including more than 230,000 direct jobs in places like the Dominican Republic, and Haiti, and Honduras, Mexico, Ecuador, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Panama, and Brazil. We need to think about premium cigars as more than just a luxury good that we enjoy with our friends. It's also critical to economic development and shared culture, both in Florida but also all across our hemisphere. So I'm grateful for the Premium Cigar Association, for their leadership, and for all that each of you does to support this important industry. May God bless all of you, and I hope to see you all soon.
A wonderful statement at the beginning
from the
from
PCA.
Senator Rubio. Mr. Marco Rubio, many thanks for your contribution, and we'll give the stage and the word to U.S. Senator Mr. Bob Menendez for his contribution.
A
Thank you.
membership for this event, which speaks to the growing demand in the United States for premium cigars and the international trade relationships at the heart of this industry. Whether you are a small retailer, an importer, or a wholesaler, your business fosters strong economic ties between the United States and the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Honduras, and other nations throughout Central America. Every day, you help advance U.S. interests in the Western Hemisphere by creating jobs that build prosperity, promote greater economic development, and improve stability in the region. And as U.S. consumers' demand for premium cigars continue to grow, so does our trade with our closest neighbors. As chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, I want to see the United States deepen our trade relationships with our closest neighbors and exercise greater leadership throughout the Western Hemisphere. For example, when the State Department and the U.S. Agency for International Development invest in programs that support the rule of law, combat corruption, and strengthen agricultural development, we help create a more stable environment for doing business. And here at home, I've always enjoyed a close relationship with premium cigar retailers back in New Jersey. Over the years, I've worked to ensure that regulations intended to prevent the use of tobacco products by our youth do not sweep up the premium cigar industry and put those small businesses in jeopardy. I'm glad to have a strong relationship with the PCA, and today I want to congratulate your senior leadership on organizing the first of what I hope are many future events on the international dynamics of this important industry. Thank you, and I wish you a successful conference.
And with these wonderful words from Senator Robert Menendez, who is the chairman of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and Senator Marco Rubio, we kick off this program and this International Cigar Policy Summit. Throughout the afternoon, you will experience a series of panels with international panelists, speakers, and moderators talking about the various different intricacies and details of the premium cigar industry. Our first panel will be about the commerce and trade for one of the world's oldest commodities and most wonderful pleasures. The panel will be moderated by Glynn Loope, who is the Director of State Advocacy for the Premium Cigar Association, and we will introduce in a second. But I would also like to send a most heartfelt thank you and introduce another gentleman that was instrumental in setting up today's event, Mr. Joshua Huberski of the Premium Cigar Association, who is in charge and who is the head of governmental affairs. So,
Ready? Good evening, and welcome to this forum of a very, very distinguished panel that's going to, before the end of the next 45 minutes, really enlighten our listening audience as to the global economic impact of the premium cigar industry. So to kick things off, because time is going to run short with this panel, I want to start with Paul. Paul, I want you to introduce yourself from Europe, the work of the European Cigar Manufacturers Association. And then after you introduce yourself, I want you to chat about the role of European regulation, what you're confronting at this point in time, how that regulation influences global tobacco control policy and things of that nature. And I know you're well in tune with that, and we look forward to your enlightened comments.
Well, thank you very much, Glynn, for having me on this panel. And let me just say that I think this summit is a fantastic opportunity to actually address fundamental topics from a global viewpoint, like tax, trade, product regulation, and supply chain. So I'm Paul Varacas, and I'm the Director General of the European Cigar Manufacturers Association, which is an association representing 16 European cigar manufacturers, which of course links throughout in the US, but of course in Latin, Central America, but also Asia. And I must say that obviously we do see a lot of regulatory movement throughout Europe at the moment, notably with the revision of key legislation for the tobacco sector in general, which of course will impact premium cigars as well. And firstly, just a quick reminder, of course, when we talk about Europe has actually a very fragmented framework in terms of tobacco control legislation. It's not something unique. I know it's the same in the United States, but I just want to make that very clear so that the audience understands that there is this added layer of complexity. And to give an example, I will start with probably taxation, where the European Commission, which is a kind of EU executive body, it tends to actually open the EU tobacco tax directive next year to increase the minimum rates that EU countries must respect for all tobacco products category. And we do see a lot of campaignings and pressure actually coming from cigarette manufacturers on so-called harm reduction products, with the ultimate aim and wish to place all smoking tobacco products under the category called combustible product, which will be heavily taxed as cigarettes, with, of course, products like e-cigarettes and heated tobacco that will be treated more favorably. And obviously, this is very much impacting products that are placed on the market. But Europe is also very active in shaping international regulation for tobacco products. And that obviously will include cigars. And we see through the growing appetite of national countries to adopt plain packaging, with some countries intending to follow the steps of countries like Australia, New Zealand, and Ireland by applying plain packaging to all tobacco products, not only to cigarettes. And we've seen this very recently with the Netherlands and with Finland that are considering applying such a strict regime for all tobacco product categories. However, the EU is also very active in international fora, such as the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, and especially with an early adoption of a track and trace system. And I can't really stress that enough, but that system will heavily impact the trade and import of cigars into Europe, but also disrupt the day-to-day operation of hundreds to thousands of distributors and retailers across the supply chain in Europe. And while the international and EU system of tracking and tracing every single tobacco product was, of course, meant primarily to tackle the illicit trade of cigarettes, this will apply in May 2024 to all tobacco products, including cigars, cigarillos, handmade cigars, and all the others. And with the growing numbers of countries that are actually ratifying this protocol from the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, we will also see more and more countries adopting their own system, often not compatible with each other, which will place an additional burden on the supply chain of cigars that is already very stretched at the moment. And my final remark would be that we also do see an increasing alignment and exchange of views between European authorities and the FDA. So everything that is currently happening in the US or in Europe will also be influencing measures that are adopted on the West and North Hemisphere. Thank you very much, Glynn.
Thank you. And I want you to stay with us, because while we're in Europe, I want to bring in Ricardo. And Ricardo, I want you to introduce yourself in your new role, but you're the former Deputy Ambassador to the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Iceland. You had a distinguished diplomatic post, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but you created the Diplomatic Cigar Club, and using premium handmade cigars as an instrument of diplomacy in your work for the Nicaraguan government in the United Kingdom. I think that's just an absolutely fascinating commentary, but now you're in the cigar industry. And I want the two of you to stay up, but Ricardo, I want you to talk about your current new role, but I want you to draw from your diplomatic experience about the role that cigars play in contributing to economic and political stability in Latin America, which is obviously a very sensitive region in terms of the economy, how that contributes to issues like immigration and the like. That's a burning issue, obviously, in the United States. But the cigar jobs are so meaningful in Latin America. I want you to touch upon the diplomatic, economic, and political role that cigars play in your former work and what you're doing now.
Thank you very much, Glynn, and you're always too generous, I think, in your comments and your words. But I'm very grateful for that. And first of all, allow me to express my deepest gratitude to you, to Joshua, Scott, Greg, and everyone at the PCA and all of its members for the opportunity to be here together on this very special first International Trade Summit. But more importantly, I want to express my utmost congratulations for creating this space and this platform to have a truly important conversation. I feel that it's an exceptional opportunity to be here, to share, to learn, debate, and address some of these fundamental topics, but from a more global viewpoint, not so much in that typical insular fashion, which can come very easily in countries like where I live in the United Kingdom and the US and many others. And I feel like it's an opportunity to really look at these issues more globally: tax, trade, commerce, and like you said, the impact that the industry has in terms of political stability, not only in Latin America, but also across the world, not only in the exporting countries and the producing nations, but also the stability that it creates in the importing nations, such as the US and many others. But yeah, no, you touched upon my previous role, and indeed, it's a role that I'm very, grateful for having had the opportunity to serve my country for 5 years in this post as a deputy ambassador to the UK, Ireland, and Iceland. I fell in love with the cigar industry, and today I'm the chief operating officer of Toro Imports. Toro Imports are the leading cigar importer in the United Kingdom, distributor and marketing arm of cigars from Mexico, Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican Republic, and Costa Rica. So before I perhaps go into your point and go more into Latin America, I felt that because of my current role, if I can touch maybe briefly a little bit of the European market, perhaps to kind of complement, if you think it's helpful, a little bit what Paul said in terms of where I'm seeing now, coming from as a diplomat, coming as a Nicaraguan, there's not that many of us in the UK, and having had a chance to really now do a juxtaposition, I suppose, from the way we see things evolving and the trends in Europe for our cigars. Say our cigars, I mean not only Nicaragua, but also Latin America. So if you allow me, I think the first point I wanted to make in terms, I will just comment very briefly on 5 trends. And if you allow me, then I'll come back to what I feel we can look back and see the importance of governments really getting behind their industries. So the first one I would like to briefly touch upon as a training, and it was really fascinating to me as a Latin American coming into Europe, live here now more than 16 years, but never on the cigar side of things. And the first thing that really impresses you is the extraordinary diversity of the market. And Paul briefly touched upon that. And you just have to think about Europe, and it's not only the European Union we're talking about here, because then you also have to consider the UK geographically, it's within Europe, and you may have to consider countries like Turkey and Russia as well. And they're not part of the European Union. So I'm thinking the first point I want to make is when we think of the European market, it's almost when people used to ask me, tell me about Latin American market. And look, we're talking about 23 countries in Latin America. In Europe, we're talking about 27 countries. But just to put it into context, there's already 24 official languages in that region. So I think the level of complexity and density of this patchwork is something to really worth considering when we are looking and learning and from what's happening in this part of the world. Some of the countries, such as Spain, may have a more regulated consumer price methodology in the regulatory framework, as opposed to the UK, where consumer prices can be whatever the retailer thinks is best. Now, the second trend, which I think is very important, and that's close to my heart in many ways, because it's something that is very gratifying to see what's happening in terms of how robust it is, the European market at the moment. Not surprisingly, there's an exponential growth, and I believe it's part of the COVID boom effect, if you want to call it that way, where we're seeing a 30 to 40% growth across, say, major importers and retailers. So across the whole industry in Europe, you're seeing this very positive growth. Indeed, there are very strong issues in terms of supply challenges that we're all facing, particularly hard to keep up with the demand that has been increasing. In the UK in particular, we have the very famous issue of Brexit, which has aggravated the whole situation when it comes into the being able to trade more freely and more efficiently. But I think all in all, what we're seeing, and what I wanted to call the attention to into the moment that we're seeing is a moment that what we call New World cigars, which in the US, you don't have to use that term as much, obviously, because there are no Cuban cigars to differentiate. I remember 15 years ago coming to the UK and people telling me there's Cubans and non-Cubans. And I thought, hold on, there must be a better term to call cigars from my part of the world other than non-Cuban. Not good to start with the non when they're referring to something that you love so much. But what I want to highlight is, if you see the trend that perhaps just over a decade ago, maybe the market was 90% Cubans and 10% New World cigars. Now what we're seeing, at least looking more closely in the UK, is a parity. It's a 50-50% in terms of market share overall, when you're looking at e-commerce and brick and mortar. So that's a trend that in the boom, us as Latin Americans are seeing, and really, really happy to see that. The third trend, we briefly talk upon it, I think in terms of the uniqueness of the consumers and the style. I was just in the US a couple of months ago, spent a long amount of time in Texas and Florida, visited many, many cigar retailers, and you get a sense, obviously, the difference into the consumer demand. So in terms of what a European consumer will be more demanding in terms of the depth of knowledge and the depth of storytelling, and even the depth and the quality of the salesmanship they expect at every level through the process. I think that's something that puts Europe in a different situation altogether into how brands from my country and from other countries in Latin America need to learn even better how to address them. Fourth, before I move to the last one, I think it's really interesting to see the speed of change. So what we see is a voracious and ever-increasing acceleration in the speed of change. So trends that used to take maybe 2 to 3 years to materialize, that we could forecast and actually see them happening, say from the taste into the profile of some of the cigars, or the Vitola styles, or the origins, from 2 to 3 years, what we're seeing now, it's 6 months or less. So there's an increasing speed that, not surprisingly, it is an element that has to do with social media, the new product launches appetites, and a whole globalized demand. And I think that's a key element here. Now, the last trend, and this will lead, I believe, to what we as a diplomatic and government view into the importance of and the challenge that we have in the industry. And Paul spoke about it at length, is the challenging regulatory framework. that we face. And in that one, I wish not to get too much into the European Union side of it, but perhaps just very briefly mention the case of what somebody once told me: the UK is sort of the California of the US when it comes into the regulatory framework. And I'm just repeating the words of somebody else. That's all. And in that case, what we're seeing is, whilst we had great victories, I feel in the UK, some of them, for example, avoiding the plain packaging, keeping lounges open, at some point being able to separate for the scope of this regulatory framework discussions, cigarillos, cigarettes, and cigars because of their weight, so over and under 3 grams. That was a great achievement, I feel. Now, what's important to highlight of these successes is the only way they happen and the only reason why they're actually resulting in an effective conclusion and positive is because we saw a coming together of all the different stakeholders in the supply chain. And I think that's the message, and if anything, what's to learn and take away and multiply as much as possible. When we had the retailers, we had the importers, distributors, the producers, and governments coming together, at least exporting governments, the origin country governments, coming together to advocate and educate and, quite plainly, lobby towards being able to prevent some of these really harsh and negative regulatory invasion of people's freedom to enjoy such a beautiful product. But more importantly, an invasion into the livelihoods and the well-being of communities, not only in our countries, poor economically countries, but also in the high streets of the UK, in the communities in here, where I am right now, in Switzerland, and all these communities that depend, and the stability of their social ties are very much dependent on the pubs, the cigar lounges, and this is the importance of being able to do this in a united front. As such, I think what we have is the opportunity to join efforts across borders, coordinated efforts. We heard from both senators of the importance, and that's what I think it's worth highlighting again. This kind of industry, being such a wide supply chain, what I can at least talk from the Nicaraguan perspective, and I'll conclude with this so we can continue the conversation, since as a good Nicaraguan, possibly I'm speaking more than I should have. So bear with me and indulge me in this last moment.
Absolutely.
We talked about, this is an industry, say for example, just a case of Nicaragua, right? I mean, we looked at some of the numbers in the US. I'm a little bit more knowledgeable of the Nicaraguan numbers, but this is an industry that essentially is 3% of our GDP. I mean, this is about a third of the jobs within the whole infrastructure of free trade zones are in the cigar industry. So you're talking about maybe 50,000 people directly being employed in a country of 6.5 million people. So it puts into context how how much importance it has, but more importantly, you could see there has been a direct link and if you look at the 2 trends of economic growth and the growth of the cigar industry in Nicaragua, in this case in particular, they're almost foreshadowing each other in terms of the more you see an improvement into the growth of cigars, you directly start seeing also an improvement in terms of the quality of the lives of the individuals. Now, cigar diplomacy is not only domestic. I did practice it on domestic level in the UK to be able to have these conversations with different, from MPs, which will be sort of senators, to government officials. But I feel that the power of what will be a cigar diplomacy and realizing the importance of this industry as a cohesive platform to strengthen relationships, not only commercial, which are essential, but also cultural. And I think it allows us to get to know each other a lot better and be able to be more productive in business. So I think there's an opportunity to not only look at promoting the relationship within the states, but also across borders. And in that note, I would say I make a call, if anything, because I have seen how much effort, at least we've seen in the UK, in my personal experience and my role, how much effort do countries of exporting countries, cigar countries, they put into protecting and putting their ambassadors and putting their staff into really trying to educate. All we're trying to do is educate. Cigars are not cigarettes. They deserve a different framework. I wish more local governments in importing countries would also realize the importance that it has for their own stability, and that the mayors of the cities across Europe, that local governments will be a little bit more proactive or at least more open to understand this. But with that, what I would say is indeed, where there's a lever and there's a will, there is a way. And we saw a great improvement in the UK through cigar diplomacy and efforts and having these conversations like the one we're having today.
Well, those are profound and wonderful words, Ricardo, and we thank you for that. The reason I wanted to keep Paul on the screen right now is I want you both to take 90 seconds to talk about the influence and role, since both of you are in Europe, the influence and role of the World Health Organization in the regulatory fight worldwide in terms of tobacco control. It seems to me that the WHO seems to promote a one-size-fits-all approach to tobacco control, and that there's no tangible difference between a cigar and a cigarette. And we all know that that's not the case. Thousands of pages of research have now been generated to substantiate that from a public health perspective. But yet the WHO, which I'm sure both of you have dealt with far more intimately than any of us, could just address the role they have in influencing global tobacco control policy and maybe some insights into that. And I wanted both of you to comment on that before we bring in our friend Lito Gomez.
Please, Paul.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ricardo, and very insightful comments that you put out there. Glynn, well, I must say that the WHO, of course, is very much active in pushing a one-size-fits-all agenda when it comes to tobacco control regulation. And then the best example of that is when you look at the publications that are coming out of the WHO, they are mainly talking about tobacco products. And that is, of course, translated into, a big push in order to have some sort of regulatory alignment everywhere. And you mentioned the thousands of pages, that you probably, is referring about in the US. We have indeed, coming over and over every 3 years, publicly available information called the Barometer in Europe that shows clearly that the consumption pattern, the type of consumers that are consuming cigars in general are very, very different from cigarettes, but also from other tobacco products. Let's mention retail price of cigars, but also cigarillos in Europe are actually much higher than any other tobacco product on the EU market. So the insight I can say is, of course, that the WHO has established itself in regional entities as well, including in Europe, that is putting pressure on regulators, member of the European Parliament, member of the European Commission, in order to go, even, faster and further in tobacco control regulation without looking necessarily into the differentiation between tobacco products. Obviously, we did manage so far to keep some exemptions for cigars in European legislation, and we do hope that will still be the case in upcoming revision of the legislation.
Thank you,
Ricardo,
Paul.
you want to?
Thank you, Glynn. No, very insightful, Paul. Much appreciated. And just I think to add that I would mention perhaps more of a direct experience we had as back in my time as government official in the UK, but also hearing comments, and I'm seeing now more in my role now within Tour Imports. I'm working together with the Association of Cigar Importers and Tobacco in the UK, EATPAC. But look, just because of the WHO's influence and pressure, the UK, for example, has already stated it has the principle, the desire that by 2030 become a zero tobacco country. So those kind of statements at a government level, when they're saying by 2030, is like saying there will be no more diesel cars and there will be no more tobacco. Just think of that correlationship. How can it be possibly conceivable that we're making those kind of relations and similar approaches into eliminating a whole industry without differentiating, exactly as Paul said, between the different kinds of products? So I think that's fundamental. But then what makes it really hard on the day-to-day, so in the actual work that we say, if a government official had to go and talk with an MP or potentially to talk with government officials, now us as cigar industry, in practice, governments in Europe and in the UK are not allowed to directly engage with the cigar industry. So when we want to have a serious conversation with the health authorities and try to really address these misconceptions, sometimes we just hit with a wall that says, look, I can simply not even talk to you just because WHO, the agreements and the principles forbid many countries to even do so. And even embassies of some of these countries, I recall inviting to a diplomatic cigar club, and they would say no, because WHO regulation does not allow my embassy, although I love cigars and I know the ambassadors loving the cigars, they cannot be seen in any way or form. So I think at all levels, on a very high regulatory level, as Paul is talking, but also in the day-to-day work, in a diplomatic role or a cigar role, you have the WHO throwing its tentacles and trying to strangle an industry that is vital for the survival and the well-being of so many people around the world.
Outstanding. That's the very message that I was hoping you would both convey. That is a message that I don't think has been told before in the history of at least my last dozen years of cigar advocacy. So I'm so glad both of you, from your personal experience, were able to share that. I want to bring on the screen now Lito Gomez and John Oliva Jr. to join our conversation. And Lito, thank you for joining us. You're obviously the owner of La Flor Dominicana, the maker of the famous Andalusian Bull, which I've got a collection of. But you are a pivotal leader with Pro Cigar. And I think I can say objectively, arguably, Pro Cigar is really the preeminent national organization for advocacy for the premium cigar industry, for that represented in the Dominican Republic. I look forward to, if you could share now the work of Pro Cigar, how you're organized, what you do in terms of advocacy with the country, both in the Dominican Republic and abroad. So welcome, Lito, and I look forward to your words.
Hi, how are you, everybody? Nice to see you, and congratulations for creating this forum. It's a great idea. You asked a really good question about the World Health Organization, the WHO, and they're supposed to be protecting the world health. So just imagine, with the final goal, like Ricardo was saying, that, having zero tobacco burning by whatever year it is, if they accomplish that goal, just imagine in Dominican Republic and in Central America, countries that are already poor, people that live in different conditions than other countries, developed countries like the UK or the US. Just think about all these hundreds of thousands of people without jobs. And their poverty increases. Hygiene decreases totally. The health of these people in these poor countries are going to be seriously affected by the poverty caused by this type of regulations. So that's a very, very serious case, and the WHO doesn't have any idea about that, or haven't thought about that. So just a comment. Ricardo, I don't like the non-Cuban thing, the non-Cuban cigars thing. I hate it. New World, I like it better. But maybe my son was just telling me, maybe you should call it Free World Cigars. Okay, to the point that you asked me to talk about, we are blessed in Dominican to have a president that really, really supports the cigar industry. Really, he's behind us, and when it comes to taking a position against any regulation or against any taxation, the country, as official position of the country, the president will take it with no hesitation, and they will defend the cigar industry. So we're very, very blessed about that. Okay, he expressed it. I actually told them, listen, if you ever are going to take a position defending any product that's related, that has tobacco in it, it's not going to be a very popular position. You're going to take hit if you support our industry. And he goes, I know, I'm very aware of it, but I will take a position when the time comes. So he's very much behind us.
That's outstanding. And it's amazing to me. What was it, Lito? Is just prior to COVID sitting in, you and your team, your board members were able to almost instantly get a meeting with the president of the Dominican Republic upon request. And I think that speaks to the influence that Pro Cigar and the leadership of the cigar industry in the Dominican Republic have built with your own government. Is there ways that you could share that organizationally that model should be really emulated in other countries? Costa Rica's cigar factory market is growing. I think Honduras has a lot of capacity to build. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but could Pro Cigar share their model with other cigar producing countries?
The way we see it, it's for tobacco for Dominican Republic, it equals wine for France, or cheese, or balsamic vinegar for the Italians. It's part of our culture. We, as a country in Dominican Republic, should be very proud of tobacco. And this is the message that that we take to the government, to the president. We need it's as a country, we are all proud of it here, and as Nicaragua should be, and Honduras, and Costa Rica, and Mexico, and all the countries that produce cigars, and in the U.S. But in some of these countries, like Nicaragua and Dominican Republic, this industry is so representative of the culture of the country. It's part of something that we as countries should be very proud of, and the government should defend that, because we don't have many other things to be proud of, and tobacco is definitely one of them. It's the same in Dominican Republic as Nicaragua, because the cigar industry is so big in these two countries, and employ so many people, and the revenues for the country from all export related to cigars. So you have the economics, you have the cultural part, and you have the pride of being, you know what? Yes, we these countries make great cigars and the best in the world, so it's something that the message needs to be taken to. If you don't get a direct access to the president, go to somebody that has, and it's the way we do things, and we haven't had presidents that are so familiar with cigars before. We have presidents that they have no idea what a cigar was, or the difference between a cigarette or a cigar. They have no idea. So, it was harder to get a message across. But we continue to reach out to the government, and until we get to the president. And when we get to the office of the president, we go with all the information that we have. And the difference, always stating the difference between a cigar and cigarette, or other tobacco products for that matter. And so it's the message is very important, and the advocacy, the going the streets, just try to get to the government. It's very important that you have it on your side, and that they understand what is that we do.
That's a profound.
We're not an evil industry. We don't poison people. We are an industry that brings pleasure to people. We're part of good moments all over the world that are shared through a cigar, and we're not evil, and we need to take that message to every government.
Before we go to John, that's the very point I wanted you to highlight. I don't mean to put you on the spot again, Lito, but you've got a marvelous story a story that led to an advertisement that you put in Cigar Aficionado magazine. And it started with how you explained moderation to your son. I was wondering if you would just mind sharing that story about how you explained moderation to your son. And you told that story on Capitol Hill.
You know what? My son came from school one day. He was probably 9 years old. And, he told me, Dad, I have promised these people from the American Lung Association came to the school, and I committed to raise money for them. And I say, okay, I don't really like those people, but okay, you have already committed to raise money for them. So what are you going to do? And he goes, well, you give me a check and, I give the check to them. And I say, no, that's not how it works. Okay, so you committed to raise money. So now, every time you go to a friends of yours house, you speak to their parents and you ask them for a check. And every time somebody comes to this house, you're going to ask them for a check because you committed to raise money. And that's what you're going to do. Okay, it's not me who's going to raise the money, it is you. And he goes, he did that and he raised a lot of money for them. Okay, so he takes all these checks to the school, and the guy from the American Lung Association comes back. And that day my son came back from school and he said, Dad, I say, how did you do with the money? What did he tell you? So, they were very happy for the money I raised. But I'm very sad because this guy was telling all of us that, cigars will kill you. And I'm very sad about that. Okay, so I say, I wanted to go to school that moment to see if I can find that idiot. But it was too late. So I say, son, come here. I took him to the kitchen. I asked him to sit down. So I went around the kitchen and the bar, and so I got scotch, and I got wine, and I got sugar, and I got salt, and I got coffee, and I got cigars, and I got bacon, and I put everything in front of him. And I told him, listen, everything that you see here in front of you will kill you if you don't use moderation. But if you use moderation, everything that you have in front of you is here to make your life more pleasant. And don't ever forget that. I told him his eyes were, I was very upset, so his eyes were wide open. And I said, listen, very carefully, use this for the rest of your life. If you abuse any substance, whatever it is going to kill you. It is going to destroy your health. So use moderation. And after that, I thought that, the idea was brilliant. So I created this ad with, a hamburger and, a bottle of wine and a bottle of scotch and sugar and all this shit that's supposed to be bad for you. Okay. And, everybody uses it, even the people that regulate us.
I love that story, Lito. I had to have you tell that story.
Thank you.
If we could just, get the United States government and foreign governments to remember your story to your son, we would be just fine.
Unfortunately, they're too dumb to do any of that.
And so now we're going to bring in John Oliva Jr. and Jeremiah Mirafil. Glad he could join us. And we're going to spend our closing moments talking about two different parts of the world that many don't think of deeply. But if you smoke a cigar, your lips touch the wonder that comes out of these two regions of the world. And everyone talks about Ecuadorian wrapper. Well, I don't know how many of you recall, but Cigar Aficionado did a profile and put in a big giant picture of John Oliva Jr., who's joining us here today. And I want you to talk about the wonder of Ecuadorian tobacco, what it means to the economy in Ecuador, the role of your company, the number of employees you've got, the contribution that it makes to the industry. So John, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Glenn. And it's good to see everybody here. I haven't seen Jeremiah in a long time. Just to give you a little background, we started in Ecuador around 1979. We purchased our first farm from America Sumatra Company, and my grandfather went down there with the idea specifically of trying to create a viable premium cigar wrapper operation in Ecuador. At that time, nobody was in Ecuador really attempting to grow that type of tobacco. That's important because it takes us to where we're at now. Back then, I think we were growing about 125 acres. We've subsequently obviously increased that operation to two different areas in Ecuador, where we are the primary employer behind the banana, obviously the banana business in Triunfo and Bucay, Ecuador, and in another area of Ecuador called Empalme. Currently, we're employing over 1,602 people at the height of the growing season, of which I would say about 900 of them are full-time employees. Many of them have been with us all their lives, all their working adult lives. Ecuador, obviously, from that point on now has become amongst one of the most preeminent wrapper growing areas in the world. From that initial start, I think of 100,000 pounds, the exports now out of Ecuador as of August 2021, when I looked last time, were somewhere in excess of 5.5 million pounds of predominantly wrapper tobacco, because that's what's basically all can be grown in Ecuador, with an export value of somewhere around $52 million. Obviously, duties and taxes come with that for the host country. Our operation, what we've always done as it relates to Ecuador and the impact that it has on Ecuador, is we operate as an American company in Ecuador, which means we follow all their laws, which is not always what happens in these countries, to be frank. We provide medical care and have clinics on all our operations directly for our farmers, which is very common in our industry. Okay. We also provide housing for our long-term employees on the farms. And we also have started the social responsibility compact now, so that we can be, environmentally sustainable and progress our part of the industry with water conservation, protection on the farm, and everything else. Ecuador's impact on the cigar industry right now, I would say, and the use of wrapper coming from Ecuador is very important. And, again, many of our employees have worked for us since we've been there. As a matter of fact, our head of operations there has been with us since we started. So, the impact that it has is it's a growing industry in Ecuador now. As I said before, we were I believe the first one there to grow, and the Pears, who have a huge operation, are very important in our industry, followed us there, and up until probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, we were the only people growing. But I have seen that growth now with other people going into Ecuador grow tobacco, which is we welcome. We think the more people doing what we do in that country is great for that country. Mm-hmm. So with that said, I mean, that's what I can tell you.
It's fabulous information, John. It's background that I don't think a lot of cigar consumers and perhaps even retailers have ever heard before about what goes into making a prized tobacco like that in Ecuador. And now, Jeremiah, the moment of truth. You've got 3 hours to tell us about Cameroon tobacco. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Take about the same amount of time as our friend John Oliva Jr., but you've got some fascinating stories. Your family's role in West African Republic, Cameroon, in producing also some of the most prized wrapper in the entire industry. But you and I've had these discussions before. I want you to touch upon the farms that are growing this prized tobacco, the jobs and employment that it provides from Africa to the United States, economically what it means to the regions that your family produces prized tobacco in. So, Jeremiah, share with us your story.
All right. Thank you very much, Glynn. First of all, I'd like to salute John, Paul, Ricardo, and Lito. It's nice to see all of you happy and healthy today around the table, and it's a pleasure to be with you as always. Gentlemen, I need to excuse myself. I was late. We've had a medical emergency in the family, and somebody's been rushed to the ER. So if I have to jump off this call within a few seconds, Lito is gonna take over and continue explaining the role we have in Cameroon and what it is we do. But I'm going to try to be as quick as I can and hopefully give you a good size of what we do. Our family's been involved in Cameroon since the 1960s. My grandfather was trading tobacco out of Cameroon. And in those days, Cameroon was mostly geared up to produce cigarette tobacco. It was cigarette tobacco back in the days was dark it was dark sun-grown tobacco, and it was being used in the Gauloise and the Gitane and in the Cigaro, the Fleur de Savane, which were produced by the French monopoly with the Seita. And slowly the family started understanding that Cameroon was a very, very noble leaf. It was a very interesting leaf. Originally, the seed is from Indonesia, and so you have these characteristics where you have very, very thin leaves, incredibly thin and delicate leaves, quite similar in appearance or characteristics and structure to some of the Sumatra tobacco that our family was also trading since the late 1800s. So the venture truly started becoming an important venture for both Cameroon and our family in the early 90s when my father bought out the French monopoly. And what's important to know is that the French monopoly owns all of the major structures which are in the east of Cameroon and the west of Central Africa. And these structures are small towns or small cities, actually. These structures are the nests, the core, the embryo, the nucleus of entire economies that revolve around them. The entire life and the entire well-being in terms of health and education, in terms of commerce, is built around this infrastructure that used to be owned by the Seita. Whether it's Bachuri, whether it's Lolo, whether it's Belita, whether it's Gambula, all of these cities are literally built around these tobacco centers. And for the very simple reason that, if I'm not mistaken, this industry, as it is done still today, is the largest employer in the country, respectively. And if it's not the largest, then it's in the top 2 or 3 for sure. The impact that we have directly on the local population is humongous. And there's a reason for that. Cameroon tobacco is probably one of the only tobaccos which is still grown like people would do it in the medieval ages. I mean, somebody like John would visit our sites and say that we're absolutely out of our minds to operate the way we operate. We have farms, of half a hectare, 1 hectare, 1.5 hectare, 2 hectares, and we have thousands and thousands and thousands of them scattered around the rainforest in eastern Cameroon, with no access to water, with no access to electricity, and with no access to the farms, because you can't get there by car in many cases. So you literally have to get out of your 4x4, and with a machete, you have to cut through the jungle and find your way to one of these clearances where we have chosen a plot to grow tobacco. And there's thousands and thousands of these plots scattered around the rainforest. And to make matters even more interesting, we don't believe in staying twice on the same farm. Why? Because we don't have the infrastructure to use the fertilizers and everything that's needed in modern agriculture. So we want to use virgin land as much as we can. And space isn't missing over there. There's plenty of space to be able to do it. So you can imagine that we're working in a very interesting environment. Some would call it hostile. I would call it energizing and fascinating, because you are in the middle of Mother Nature beyond belief. I believe that the Dominican or Nicaragua is Las Vegas next to what Lolo or Baturi would actually look like. And we do it in a certain way that's definitely not the easy way, but But the way that we believe people such as Lito, such as Carlito, such as the few which we have the privilege of serving, can access a very particular, very particular type of tobacco and taste. Now, if you want to dive into the socioeconomic impacts that has, well, you do the maths. There's about 2,000 to 3,000 farms. There's about between 7 and 10 people operating per farm. And then you have all of the workers that is working back in the centers for the fermentation, for the sorting and everything else. So the impact that this directly has is about 25 to 30,000 people directly. And then you add to that everything that's happening in these villages around this, because this is the only source of income in this area. Apart from maybe wood, when wood comes and does its ravages and destroys the forest. But coffee more or less disappeared. Cocoa more or less disappeared in this region. And so what is left is some agriculture, which is, let's say, for sustenance. And then there's the Marifel tobacco companies, which are sustaining this vast, old school, very heavy organization, which has an indirect impact on the region. Well, I mean, you can just guess. I mean, it's probably driving commerce to most of the people that are actually living in these areas. These are very remote areas. These are areas which are very, very far from the federal governance. And as you know, John knows this, Lido, the federal government in these places usually, when they can't touch it with a stick, it's usually forgotten, and there's not so much coming in from the federal government. The police usually don't really get paid, and the infrastructure is literally falling to pieces. When we have roads near our centers or bridges near our centers that we need to have to go between the centers, which are dysfunctional or which are destroyed, we need to rebuild them ourselves. We have no choice. And this is day-to-day life in Cameroon, day-to-day life. But that's the price of growing Marifel Cameroon wrapper. Many have tried to come in and do it another way, and many have. They've gone next to the cities. They've gone next to the very developed villages. We've had over the years, competition come and go, and they've operated in this manner. But two things happen. One, the tobaccos are grown on lands which are not appropriate for growing Cameroon. And two, just as importantly, more importantly to the population, the impact is reduced largely, and you see that it's more of a city boy game type of operation that's being played. So, Glynn, if you have any particular questions, or anybody else on the panel or out there, shoot them, because we could sit here for the next weeks and talk about Cameroon and talk about how we operate in this probably one of the most beautiful places on the planet with the most beautiful people on the planet. And as long as I'm breathing, and as long as I can afford it, and as long as the industry supports us, we're going to continue. Whether it's profitable or not, as long as we can continue breathing in this environment, the responsibility that we have towards these hundreds of thousands of people in an area where there are only X number of people is beyond belief. And my father got caught up in it, and he died in it. I got caught up in it, and my brother, and we'll probably die in it, most certainly. And I think that's the legacy and the tradition of what we want to be and what we want to represent, Glynn.
Well, thank you, Jeremiah. That was
if I may say something.
Yes, Lito.
My friend, congratulations to you. My hat off to you and your brother.
Thank you, sir.
This
great, thank you for all your support.
Great gentleman that your father was. when he died, you were children, you and your brother, and you inherited this company in the middle of nowhere, and you had to take care of the company, and you guys
Actually,
did.
Lito, if I may, I have an anecdote about this, because it was actually the worst moment of my life. Because it's not that we inherited a company. In 2003, my father was expropriated in the Central African Republic, in the area where we are, just next door. And he lost everything, absolutely everything that he built his entire life. And he died a week later of a massive heart attack. And when Joshua and I decided to take over, we didn't take anything over. We rebuilt the operations in Cameroon and then took the Central Africans to court for the next 10 years to recuperate our assets. So first of all, I would like to thank you for your generosity and your words and your kindness, but people need to understand that we need the governance and the governments in these areas to cooperate. We need these governance and the governments in these areas to open their eyes and to pull out their hands to us. Because people like John and people like you, Lito, who are in areas of the world where you are giving back, and the social impact that you have, that we have, is beyond what governance and governments are getting involved with. And I think that the whole ideology and the whole point of this discussion, and what Glynn has been fighting for now and has been vehicling in terms of his communication and the lobbying, is that hopefully one day soon, our governance and our governments will assist us. They will help us. They will extend possibilities for us to be able to breathe in the environments rather than choke us in the environments. And everybody who knows my family and everybody who knows my company and everybody who knows Josh and I know that we're not in it for the money. Sure, we make a living and we pay the expenses, but the responsibility that we have towards the communities and towards the environment and towards the memory of my father and what he was trying to build for the local communities goes way beyond normal business sense. You know, a lot of companies, big companies, huge, the biggest in the world, have come into Cameroon and tried to grow Cameroon wrapper. And very quickly they noticed there's no profits in it. It's too difficult. It's too complicated. It's too costly. You have to be an idiot in terms of a business model to go into Cameroon and try to dream of some kind of, nirvana in this kind of environment with this kind of difficulties. You know, agriculture today has evolved so much. You know, today you can use modern agricultural techniques. You can use cow freezes. You can use things which will bring your yields up to 60, 70, 80% plus. I don't know. I don't even know because I'm not in that world. You grow Cameroon in Cameroon the real way, the Marifel way. Excuse me to use that word, but it's the only way right now. And you're getting 3, 4, 5% yield on your crop. John, you can laugh when I say 3, 4, 5% yield, because you know that nobody in their right mind grows a crop getting a 3, 4, 5% yield at the end of the day. You got to be a freaking idiot, or you have to have another agenda. And Glynn knows, and Lito knows the family for a long time. We've been very close. They know very well what we're in for it for, and the responsibility and what we're trying to do. And then you realize how important it is for governments to cooperate, for governments to pull out their hands. And I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope that things will change. I have a lot of hope that there's a new generation of people that come into place and look at it differently. Africa is not the colonial world it was in the 1950s anymore. The governments have no rights no right to suffocate population in this way. And I know I'm being very vindicative. I don't know how you say it, vindicative and strong, but there needs to be a message that is come across. There needs to be cooperation. You can't be in a country like the Dominican Republic or Ecuador or Cameroon, be one of the largest employers and have one of the biggest impacts in the economies, and not have massive support from the governments. So I'm going to leave it at that because I see Glynn is pulling his fingers in every direction. But I'd like to make everybody.
I told you you had 3 hours.
I'd like to make everybody aware that everybody has a role to play in this. Every consumer that loves Cameroon wrapper, everybody that likes his cigars from the Dominican, from Ecuador, from his tobacco, his beautiful tobacco from Ecuador, his cigars from Nicaragua, wherever it may be in the world, it's very important to enjoy the products. But it's just as important to once in a while, when you have the opportunity, try to figure out what's happening behind the scenes. Try to phone up the local embassy or government, whatever it might be. And anybody out there that has the possibility to put pressure, guys, because at the end of the day, the FDA in the United States is a huge threat. The Europeans with their, the TPD, blah, 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 is a huge threat. But governments in third world countries are also a huge threat, and you're not seeing that. You're not realizing that. And I'm sure John can tell you a lot about this, and I'm sure Lito can tell you a lot about this. And Ricardo, I know you were a politician, so you could tell us even more about all of this.
Jeremiah, we couldn't think of a better way to capsulize this discussion, and I cannot thank each of you enough. In a dozen years of listening to broadcasts and seminars and you name it, I have never heard stories like today exchanged in a cigar forum. I think each of you have contributed in a way that this recording is going to live on in posterity. From Ecuador to Africa to Lito and Pro Cigar's efforts, and our dear friends in Europe with Paul and Ricardo, we cannot thank you enough for contributing to this profound discussion on the existing state of this industry, where the future holds, the legitimate role of government in protecting it, as we all work together to do what's best to make sure that the next generation experiences the wonder of premium handmade cigars. So thank you for doing this and joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glynn. Thank you for having me.
Bye, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, what an inspiring first panel session we were just honored to experience. Moderated by Glynn Loope, Director of State Advocacy for the Premium Cigar Association. Glynn, from my heart as well, a personal thank you for your contribution to the premium cigar industry and to the cigar world. And I would like to continue today's program with the introduction of a gentleman that I actually already introduced before the panel, but now is the time to bring in Mr. Joshua Huberski, Head of Government Affairs for the Premium Cigar Association. Joshua, many thanks for playing such an instrumental role in bringing this program and today's wonderful event to life. And over to you.
Thank you, Reinhard. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joshua Huberski, and I serve as the Head of Government Affairs and Chief Lobbyist for the Premium Cigar Association. It is a great honor to participate in this foundational event on international cigar policy, and I'm thankful for all of the panelists, keynote speakers, and attendees that have joined us around the world today. I would like to thank Scott Pierce, John Anderson, and Greg Zimmerman for their leadership and vision for making this possible. Through this short forum, we are building intergovernmental relationships, private sector connections, and engaging with top policymakers in a variety of different countries. More importantly, we are collectively telling the story of the premium cigar industry and its positive impact on people across borders and boundaries, and how it's shaping communities and families. Oftentimes, it's frustrating facing constant pressure of overburdensome regulations and harmful legislation, which is exactly what we're experiencing in the United States today. However, these challenges cannot detract us from losing sight from the importance of the premium cigar industry and its effect on real people. I am proud to represent small business retailers and their employers before the halls of Congress, the Food and Drug Administration, and the White House. It is critically important that these policymakers understand the nuances of premium cigars, and discussions like this help facilitate these goals and elevate our voices as one premium cigar community. Today in the United States, we are facing the threat of the largest federal tax increase on premium cigars that would have a devastating impact globally. The 3,000 plus retail stores and lounges and 30,000 plus employees represented by the PCA would bear this burden along with our manufacturing partners. The Tobacco Tax Equity Act must be defeated, and your voice, your story, and your perspective matters, whether you live in St. Louis or Santo Domingo, Erie or Esteli. This is a global issue, and I encourage you to engage with the PCA and our allies to preserve the ability to enjoy premium cigars as consumers, but also to protect all of our friends and family that have an occupation or small business that is at stake. This is the first International Policy Summit on Premium Cigars, but it will not be the last. It is our hope to convene relevant policymakers and stakeholders in a variety of different venues and forums to continue this conversation. In 2022, the PCA will host a session on this topic at the PCA 2022 trade show and hopes to host this forum on international policy in person in Washington, D.C. during the fall next year. I would like to extend my gratitude for Reinhard and the Light 'em Up Lounge and Cigar Journal community for amplifying the reach and legitimacy of this virtual event. We hope to work with you on future collaborations here in the United States and abroad. And I'm really looking forward to hearing Reinhard's next panel, as well as our remaining keynote speakers to close out the day. Thank you, Reinhard.
Joshua, many thanks for these wonderful words and the most important message that you shared with all of us. It is my pleasure now to welcome the guests for our upcoming panel on serving the community. When during the last panel, we spoke about the economical impact of the premium cigar industry, we now want to primarily focus on the industry's charitable and social contribution. And it is my pleasure and honor to welcome Mr. Alan Rubin, the president and founder of Alec Bradley Cigars, Luciano
Reinhard, great to see you.
Co-founder of Ace Prime Cigars and Tabacalera Picharda, and Ciro Teschella, the president of Fuente Cigar. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with us today, for taking the time and sharing your wonderful words with us. I've had the chance to engage with all of you individually, and we shared wonderful sessions at the Light 'em Up Lounge. But Alan, I would love to start with you and tap a little bit into your experiences and what you have seen and felt firsthand with the local communities and manufacturing countries, how the premium cigar world, the premium cigar industry has changed so many lives and fates for the better.
Was it me, Reinhard, that you wanted to start with? Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm proud to say that this is a very philanthropic industry that I'm a part of. We take care of those people that we all call family. It's very important that we understand that our families extend not only to the people that work in our offices, but the people that work in our factories, our box factories, our farmers. Everybody involved becomes part of our extended family. And I believe it's very important. And I believe that Ciro and Luciano can attest to this, that it's more than just the cigars. It's about the people. And everybody involved within our organizations is very essential to the process and essential to the to what we feel as people. And I mean, there's a lot of stories that we can tell about giving back, and I'll let Luciano and Ciro get into some of the things that they do. But many of us take care of schools, orphanages, schools for the underprivileged, and internationally. But we also take care of many charities domestically, right? I can tell you that most of the large events, cigar events that are done domestically, have a charitable component. And so, we always get to give, and which is a really important part of what we do. And I think all of us understand that the more we get, the opportunity to give more. So that's how I'd like to start.
Luciano, from your vast experience, and Luciano, you've seen so many different countries in the world. You're a well-traveled cosmopolitan. You have seen people's lives change for the better because of what the premium cigar industry has brought to the table. The people that work with you, that work alongside you at the Tabacalera with your company. How is the cigar industry special in that? And why has it had such an important impact, especially when you compare it to other industries? What's special about that personal touch the cigar industry has always had and the social component linked to that?
It's a very good question, Reinhard. First, I want to say hi to my dear friend, Alan Rubin, and also
Great
Cyril.
to see you,
Very nice to see you again. I think part of my answer is probably connected with the fact that we have 3 different companies represented in the panel that care about people. I think I like the concept that I heard the other day, which is that we don't, I wish we didn't have to do charity, which sounds contradictory. But at the same time, if we just really elevate or remember our true human values, this wouldn't be necessary. Because if you act towards your human fellow with care and love and really value what matters in a relationship, you start paying a fair wage to your employees. You're gonna take care of them because that's part of who you are. I think what makes it special in this industry is the fact that there's a lot of very good people in this industry. I know, for instance, Alan's heart. I know what he went through with a fire recently into one of his farms, and things like when we had the pandemic, and him and I were talking about how we could, what we're doing, creating, giving food stamps or delivering food for people who could not even come to work. So this type of things happen because there is a change in here. There's something in here that I believe is extremely special, like what Carlito does with the foundation. It's something amazing, and it takes a good man to make the difference. So I believe what makes this industry special are the people that belong to this industry. Fortunately, we have a lot of good guys.
Why is it, in your opinion, that the industry attracts such a particular type of character? Gentlemen and women of old values and beliefs that just go by the sheer nature and the goodness of their heart. Why is it that this industry in particular attracts such amazing talent and character?
Oh, there you go. It's you and me now getting more philosophical again. I remember, the last show we did together was quite interesting. I think there is a component of the reflexiveness or the aspect of smoking a cigar, which is usually also very much similar when you eat, when you sit with friends, when you sit with people. Of course, the human relations are a very important component of the reason why the cigar industry attracts good people. I think people who are somehow thinkers who think about the world, who think about making a difference, who is really concerned about building a business in a sustainable way, not just sustainable economically, but socially sustainable as well. There are so many businesses out there that they go into, developing countries, and they develop business, and they take as much as they can from these countries, and just leave. So it's maybe economically sustainable, but it's not socially sustainable. You're hurting people. Unfortunately, in our industry, guys like Carlito, like the Newmans, and Alec Bradley, Crown Heads, Ace Prime, these companies, they care about people. And why they care about people and why they're human beings, I think it's very personal. I think each one of us have our own experiences, our own pains, our own struggles, and I'm just blessed to know so many good people doing good things, and this. And of course, there are some like anywhere, there are some bad guys here and there, but fortunately, the majority are very, very good.
Mr. Casciello, give us a little bit of an insight into the inspiring work that you have provided the industry with, and the service you have provided us with, and in particular, the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation that the Fuente and Newman family have for such a long time been leading and spearheading in order to truly bring value to the people in the manufacturing countries and beyond.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this panel, but most of all, for letting me share with you something that is so close to my heart, which is the Cigar Family Charitable Foundation. And the foundation really is a Carlito Fuente and Eric Newman dream. Although I was one of the founding members of that foundation, today I have the privilege of leading that school that give free to the children of the community. The program that we offer to those children cover everything. We are a world-class educational center. We give education to more than 450 children every single year. We give them education in everything. We give them math, science, history. Our curriculum includes physical education, art, craft, and music. It's something that I cannot describe with words. It's something so beautiful. And something that I want to share with everybody, that you can change the world one child at a time, is because the school success can be measured in terms of academic performance. And I want to share this with you. The average academic index in the area was very low when Carlito and Eric started this dream, was 37%. Today, it frightens me to share with all of you that the number above 90%. It's a miracle, because I want to share that day 24 years ago, I was in that gazebo with Carlito and Eric. I was very young. I was 20 years old. And I was listening Carlito telling, we need to do something. There's a lot of kids in the front of this property asking for money, for food. We need to do something for them. We need to change this community. And inside me, I was thinking, like, to do something, but there's nothing here. There's no running water. There's not electricity. Why he's trying what he want to do today, 20 years later, that we see that all the students, all those children that are today, they came back because we teach them to give back. And you see that all those children today are the math teacher. Nelson is something that inspired me. Dr. Nelson, he was asking Carlito to work at the farm. Okay, as we say here, echar el día, work by day. And today is Dr. Nelson. He's the one that is leading. He's in charge of our clinic, of the community. We attend 1,500 people. And that kid that didn't have a future today is the one that is bringing hope and is taking care of the community. I think this this industry is amazing. It's beautiful. What you can do and what this family, like what us is making to change the community, you can do it. You can change one child at a time. You can change the world. And that made me proud to be in front of that and to help Carlito and to help to that dream came to a beautiful end to help the community. It's something that I want to I want to share with you also that this year is very important for us because this is going to be the year that we're going to graduate our student, not just from a high school degree. We're giving them a technical degree of nursing. And other thing that is very important to that center that if we go back 20 years ago and you see the results, that you can change the world if you want. And we're changing that community because of this beautiful industry. We're going to groundbreaking in November this year, the Cigar Family Arts Center that is going to give more things to the community. And it's magical. I would love you to, and I was telling you, Reinhard, I want to show you in person what we are doing and all of the things that we're going to continue doing for the community and for the country.
Mr. Cascella, I believe it was Walt Disney who once said, all our dreams can come true if we only have the courage to pursue them. And Alan, I'm sure, and I know for a fact that plenty a dream you had in your heart and that had been with you when you started this wonderful endeavor. What are some of those best practices and things that in retrospect now you look back to and feel like this was truly a dream once, but it became reality through your work and contribution?
You know what? I have a surprise for everybody that is seeing this panel. And I'm gonna have to let the visionary, the person that is behind us pushing, but he was the one that pushed us every day to continue doing his vision. And I wanna ask Carlito that he just came to my office to share with you. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, but Carlito, I want you to talk with everybody and share with them your passion.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Where do I look? I'm used to doing everything out of a phone, so you look right at it. Now I'm not as sophisticated as Cyril with all these screens and everything. But Luciano, you touched on something. What is so special about the cigar industry? And I was in my office listening, and you know what? It goes back to our beginnings. I think it's, the tenderness that we were taught by our moms, the responsibility. I mean, I grew up in a little wooden house in Ybor City. And I remember my grandmother, going to all the cigar makers, don't work so hard. Here, have a little bit of café cubano. Slow down. Don't work, take cooking for everybody. And I grew up like that. And I understand to really have an artistic product and something as complex and so emotional that contains, and preserves so much emotion and history. It's the people, just like Alan said, it's the people, it's the love. And that's something that I'm so proud of my industry, of all my colleagues. And we're speaking now, and I'm thinking of myself. I look at all of Jeremiah, Oliva, Lito Gomez, and everybody, of course, Glynn, and everybody from the PCA. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's good to see, even though it's over virtual, it's good to see these faces. Good to see you, Reinhard. You guys are my family. This is a special industry of human beings, of feeling, not just numbers and accounting. Those that touch the leaf has been consumed with this mystical thing and love for people. And I think this all reflects on everything that all of you are doing, that all the companies are doing, not only us three that are on this panel and Jeremiah and Oliva, but everybody else in Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic. This is what it's all about, giving back, helping our community. I want to share something. I remember, as Cyril said in the very beginning, whenever a vehicle came into a dirt road, because there were no roads back then, to get near the plantation, there would be 40, 50 children running after the vehicle to hand out and see if they could get some money, 20 pesos, whatever it was. And it was very difficult for me because we were bringing gas to the Dominican Republic and to the farm so they could start little by little understanding that rappers are growing in Dominican Republic because no one believed it. So we entertained people. And they would ask questions, why aren't these children in school? There were no schools. So, they would give them a Coke or this or that. And the more that they gave them, the more children came running. And the more the children wanted more. So, one thing led to another, and we thought about building a little classroom to teach basic skills of, 1st to 6th grade arithmetic and maybe, reading skills, just a little bit. I think it was more like a conscious cleanser, being raised in the great country where when I went to school, I was able to learn a musical instrument and, they loan you the instrument. I went to public schools, but even public schools, we learn to respect our country and we learn to respect our authorities, and I grew up like this. And to see these children that didn't have an opportunity, and we thought about the idea of a school. Well, those children today, I could not go into the neighborhood without having a mob of children asking for something. I think it's been good 18 years since someone's asked me to stop the car to give a letter, because that's what they used to do with all the governments here, to give them a letter and to ask for something, communities and things like that. I have not been asked for 10 cents. And those children who used to put their hand like this and their head down would never look in the eyes. Today, they speak 3 languages. They receive everyone. We have from doctors to, architects, business entrepreneurs. Just 2 weeks ago, we had guests. And we had a situation where one had to go back to Santo Domingo, the capital, and one had to go to Santiago. But we only had one vehicle, and the things changed. And then the person from the plant, the general manager says, wait, why don't we call Amauri? He has a transportation company. Okay. We call Amauri. He comes, shows up in a Chevy Suburban. Amauri is one of the graduates of the first school. He has a transportation company and providing service. When I first went to that area, all the kids, I asked them, why are you not in school? He said, no, I don't have to go to school. I have a cousin that went to New York and came back 6 months later with a lot of gold and gold chains and gold watches. I'm going to go to New York. They thought the only place in the world was New York. Now the children come back to the community, serve as doctors, as entrepreneurs, provide service. It's all about giving back. And that's what the cigar industry is about, the premium handmade cigar industry. It's about people. When you think how many hands have to touch a leaf, which we've all repeated over and over again, it is a community. It is impossible to do it behind a desk with an accountant and a computer. It's about people. And it requires a lot of people and a lot of love. I just want to tell you guys, I love you all. Thank you, man. It's good to see you. I love to see the smile. Luciano, good to see you also.
Thank you very much, President.
And I didn't take as much time as Jeremiah. Okay, so give me a break.
Reinhard, let me just say something. Reinhard, you had asked about how we attract these type of people in our industry. As you can see, this is an industry of passion. And passionate people are not passionate about one thing. They're passionate. So not only are we passionate about the cigars, but more importantly, we're passionate about people. Okay? And so you take that and you take the fact that we're in the entertainment business, right? Carlito, Luciano, they provide an entertainment and they become the entertainers. So one, you want to entertain people. You want people to be happy and you're passionate. That leads to the philanthropic efforts that we all give because we feel good. Whatever we think that they're getting, we get much more.
Absolutely.
Because that really comes from who we are from within. And I can tell you the time that I spent with Carlos and Luciano, we have conversations that are way past tobacco. It's really more about people. And so that's the business we're in. We touch people, we bring them together through the products that we produce. But the most important part is that we bring them together. And so that's what this industry, to me, is about.
100%. 100%. And that's something that Carlito said. And I remember, Carlito, the first time I actually had a interaction with your foundation was in an event that Cigar Aficionado put together, Soho Bar, having actually Ernesto Carrillo, my padrino, Ernie, fundraising for your foundation. So what is also beautiful about our industry is the fact that humanity unites us. Humanity unites us. So the fact that different manufacturers that for many people they perceive us as competitors are willing, actually we're friends, but we are willing to sit down together and support each other for the common good. This is something I don't know any other industry that has that same vibe. You know, I think this is extremely important, and I am true that that Carlito, you could step up and participate at our panel today. So it's great. And like Ellen said, man, we're all in this together. It's about people. It's not about it's not about the product or the cigar or the returns. Believe it or not, I remember the first thing that Ernie told me when I got into the cigar business. He said, "You want to make money?" And because you're not going to make money in this industry, this was his first advice. But if you care about people, you enjoy this industry very much. And I never forgot that.
There's numerous of colleagues or other cigar manufacturers who have contributed to Cigar Family, as well as we've contributed to their charity. It's all one family. You're absolutely right. And by the way, Ernie is my godfather too. When I was about like 2 years old, he was around 20. He baptized me. So if you tell him he's my padrino also. So you guys be well, man. Take care. And a great segment. This show has been unbelievable. I want to say thank you very much to our senators, also, which is very, very important for accepting this invitation, and just everybody. And I continue to watch from the other office and continue to learn from each and every one of you. Be well, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Great to see you, Carlos.
Thank you. Great to see you.
At the beginning, Luciano mentioned a few of the obstacles and the hurdles that you had to overcome over the past years, but how it truly gave back so much in terms of relationships that were built, the great feeling that you received from those people you supported. Can you share with us a few of those personal stories and a few of those individual fates that you just helped take to a new level and support?
Absolutely. During the pandemic, it was a very difficult time worldwide. But you have to know that there are times in Central America, as well as you may treat people, they still only understand a certain lifestyle that they've grown up in, meaning that they sometimes live paycheck to paycheck or week to week or whatever it may be. And during a pandemic, when Honduras closed down for almost 2 months, people had no incomes. And so I happened to call a friend of mine, Corey Babbert, who runs Oliva Cigar. And I said, Corey, what are we going to do? I can't preach family and then not be there for all those people that look out for me every day. And what are you going to do? And he said, well, we're working on providing food. And literally, I couldn't have hung up the phone fast enough. Hung up the phone. We called our people down in Central America, down in Honduras, and said, we need to get food. And he said, well, there's no food in the stores because they know that the food would rot on the shelves right now because people didn't have money. So we found a wholesaler and we counted up everybody within the organization, not only the factories, the farms, our box maker, the school that we support for underprivileged kids and their families. And we counted up about 700 families, and we purchased food for 700 families of 4 for 30 days. And the truth is it was, the idea was good. The execution that I couldn't be down because I wasn't allowed to travel to Central America. The execution was great. And the feeling of knowing everyone was okay was outstanding. It was truly a win-win everywhere that we could touch somebody. And I think if Carlos and Ciro and Luciano talk about family, they know exactly what I'm talking about. They know that the family is not just who's around us, right? It's about who is involved with us, who is part of the extended family, and you have to look out for everybody. In addition, if you think about what Carlos just mentioned about people coming to the school, right? And Ciro taking this passion from the beginning and making it his own. We try and do in our own way, at our level, we try and do what we can for the community as well. When I first started going down to Honduras, one of the things I said is we need to leave Honduras better than when we got here. Whatever we take, cigars and money is a barter system, but what more can we do? And we always tried to leave, when we had trips down there multiple times throughout the year, is to leave the place better than when we got there. And that's when we got involved in the school for underprivileged kids, taking care of their needs for food, for education, for medical necessities that they needed, surgeries that we could pay for, things of that nature. And so to me, that's part of it. Now, I'll tell you one other small story. We had a box maker that just started. He just started his own company. And when we got there were 7 people and him. They were sanding boxes by hand. They had one machine to cut the wood. And I had to make a morally conscious decision to move my box production from Asia to Honduras. And we did. I said, what do you need? What do you need to be able to sustain yourself? He said, I need machinery. And I said, can you buy it? And he said, I know where it all is. And so we put up the money and we bought all the machinery and we took it back 50 cents a box for what he made for us. A year and a half later, we went there to see what was going on, and he was employing 45 people. That's 45 families that will eat. That's 45 families that are better than they were a year and a half earlier. See, to me, it's going a little bit deeper. It's a little bit further to understand how we can make positive impacts, how we can take care of kids, how we can take care of families. This industry is about feeding people. It's about feeding families. It's about doing more. Mm-hmm. And I think as an industry, Reinhard, we do a good job at it. This is an industry that is always willing to give. Always. And like I said, every big event that all of us participate in, there's always a charitable component. That's what makes it worthwhile. So I just wanted to tell you, we do, but we do because we can. Mm-hmm. We do because we want to. We do because it's part of who we are as being passionate people. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
it more than did. And these are the stories that are important and that matter. And these are the stories that need to be told. And that's why an opportunity like today's program and us coming together to share this wonderful summit is the perfect opportunity to share those stories, not just amongst the family of the leaf, but truly beyond. Luciano, I'm curious, how could we all do a better job at making sure that these stories are heard, even beyond the limitations and the borders of our ecosystem?
I think that's a great question, Reinhard, because Alan touched a subject that I actually admire him even more now. One of the very important components of making a change, it's getting personally involved. One of the things I do, and I of course, each one of us have our own, schedule, and sometimes it's not possible for all the manufacturers to do the same thing. So I'm not criticizing anybody who doesn't. So don't take me wrong, whoever is listening. But one of the things I just cannot miss is this story of our employees. So every week, when I'm in Nicaragua, I've been spending a lot of time in Nicaragua. Every week, I try to listen to their stories. I go and visit their houses. I want to see how they're living. I want to see. I really build a relationship and friendship with our employees. I know, there's always that saying, don't bring them too close, because then you're going to have a hard time to manage the business. But actually, I found that they're completely wrong. I mean, my experience, and of course, we have several stories, is that when it becomes personal, it becomes part of you. It reminds you of who you truly are and what you're supposed to do. Like Alan said, we do it because we're passionate about it. But I think people need to be reminded of these realities. And let's be frank here. A lot of people have no clue of what happens in these countries. And a lot of people also have a wrong concept that we go to these countries because the labor is cheap. It's not true. We go to these countries because there's a tradition of tobacco. There is a legacy. In all these places, they are proud. This is their profession. There's an entire economy that's around this, not just because factories one day decided to go to Nicaragua. It's because one day tobacco grew in that soil, and that amazing tobacco that you can make these amazing products, and we start employing local people to do that. But there are many things that needs to be changed. I think there's a lot of things that we can do better, and your point, your question is very relevant, because awareness is maybe something that is needed today. I know what's going on in Nicaragua. Alan knows what's going on in Nicaragua and Honduras. Carlito is very much involved in Dominican. He knows everything that happens in the other places as well. But the consumer should know too. They should know that when he's smoking that cigars, we all love the narrative that 300 plus hands touch the cigar, but I don't think that really sink into people, because they don't know what kind of hands are touching the cigars. I'm talking about people who dedicate their entire lives to make that product. We're talking about people who sometimes, by the country standards, they actually live with very little. They live with very little. They live sometimes in conditions that that you wouldn't be able to spend maybe 10 minutes where they live. And there are, like I said, unfortunately, also, and I'm not afraid of saying this, there are some bad practices as well. Like I said, I think we are lucky that 99%, just throwing out a number, but the vast majority of the manufacturers and the tobacco growers, they are concerned about their people, and they try to pay a fair wage, and they try to do the right thing. But sometimes that 1% can damage a lot of things. Unfortunately, we have this foundation in Jalapa, where when I'm there every Friday, I try to go and visit the families where we do food distribution on a regular basis. So we focused on kids with special needs that usually their mom cannot actually go to work, and they have to stay home, and so usually they can make enough to survive. So we go and we help them. But more than that, you need to know, you need to learn their stories and tell their stories. There is a systemic poverty that I believe can be changed in many of these countries. Just the tobacco industry cannot do on its own. Everybody needs to do. There are textile companies in Nicaragua that really exploit labor. It's not the case with the tobacco. This is very important to make it clear. It's not the case with the tobacco. And in the tobacco business, like Carlito said, it's about people. And if you are not in this business because of people, you won't survive in this industry. Because you need their passion. You need them to actually do products with love. And my experience of going to Jalapa and visiting these very poor families, I saw things from kids being raped by their parents, and to situations where guys who work in some of the bad guys' farm make less than $2 a day, or employees are being transported like cattle. So all these things need to stop, and we need to talk about it, and also inspire people to help and make a change. So there's a great opportunity for people to invest in these foundations that are created, the consumer. So he's also helping and doing his part, but also developing programs like the one that Alan just mentioned. You know, it's amazing. Like what Carlito is doing with the schools, like really changing these lives, changing the narrative of these lives into maybe generations. You know, because their parents had a bad education, maybe their kids will have a better education and so forth. And then the world has changed. Things like Alan did, you know, going to a box manufacturer who doesn't have the tools, doesn't have enough capital to invest in and develop his business. He goes there, empowers him without any expectation. He does his boxes there, but now the guy is making boxes for everybody else. Has 45 employees, so it's actually creating a chain of good, and is developing. I think those actions are extremely important. And I could tell you like dozens of stories, you know, of very ugly things. But I think we are here to celebrate the good stories and the good outcomes and the beautiful things that are being done by our industry. And I commend, you know, Cito for his dream, Carlito for enable that dream, and Alan for reacting, you know, at the right time and not. Man, I know this man's heart. I remember exactly the date when he went to we talked to each other. He said, "Man, I'm talking to this business there and trying to feed the guys because, you know, we don't have employment for them right now, but we got to take care of them." So this spirit it's priceless. That's what it takes. Just good people, good heart.
And a lot of effort, because somebody needs to put those things into action. Mr. Cascella, when you look ahead a few years and further down the road with the foundation, what are the things that you're currently working on or that you're envisioning for the future of the foundation and all the good that it can bring to the people in DR and beyond?
Again, we have a lot of projects that are going on right now. I just talked about the cigar center, the art center that we're going to bring groundbreaking this year. But most of that is what everybody is saying. It's about the people. It's like how you change community and how people from that community that they didn't have a future. Today they are coming back to give support as teacher, as a professionals, and that goes going beyond because like Alan was talking about the box factory. I want to tell a story. Maria, that was a lady that was graduated from the cigar family, no future. She graduated and she went to a nice college in Santiago. She became an industrial engineering with high honors. One day, she calls Carlito and say, I want to work with you. And Carlito say, okay, go to Ciro, bring him all the information. That lady today is the second on board for our box factory that holds 600 people. And when you see that lady, like being there as a professional, can you imagine will be of those children of Maria if we didn't give that opportunity? And I remember I was talking with Carlito 15 days ago because we are planning our 14th graduation this year also. And I remember those kids on the line in the day of the inauguration, we gave them clothes, shoes, and everything. And they were looking to the floor, never to your eyes. And they were so afraid to talk. Today, you see those kids, those students, like receiving our guests, receiving our people, like without I remember that lady holding her shoes because I don't want that my shoes get dirty because that day was raining. And today you see those kids like receiving the people in English and Spanish with so confident, like welcome to our center. Like there are other people, and all that you can do that if you dream and if you work hard and if you work together. And again, you can change the world one child at a time.
Alan, the wonderful thing about today's summit is the international component and how we can also look beyond the United States, the manufacturing countries, but truly start to strengthen the international network and build those bridges amongst cigar lovers all around the world. What is your vision and your opinion on the global element and how we can all come together as a global cigar family and community to send out a message of unity and strength, as I said in the beginning? And we all know that overregulation is a severe issue that we're all facing. But that aside, us as a global community, we need to be stronger and more united in our efforts and in our communication. Alan, apologies.
Alan, I
You're
think you're
just
muted, Alan.
Sorry about that. The one thing I can tell you is worldwide, whatever differences we have, the one thing that we all share in common is the love of the cigar, is the love of the leaf. And I think that in itself brings people together. I mean, if I can tell you one small story, I was up in Washington, D.C. 2 years ago, and I was talking to a senator who has been more than 20 years in office. And he turned to me and he said, Alan, he said, you know, there's such division in our country today. And he said, I find it interesting that when Washington, D.C. went non-smoking, the ability to get deals done started to disappear. Because there was many times that the politicians would sit down over a cigar and find out really who was on the other side of the table. What were they about? What were their needs? What were their desires? And then they found the compromise. So I just thought it was interesting that a politician who sits on a side, as they all do, said the ability to get deals done in Washington and D.C. started to diminish when it went as a non-smoking, area. So what happens is, I think, in coming together, one of the things, like I said, is that we have to lead by example. One of the things that Ciro, Luciano, what they try and do is create opportunity. It's education is a part of it. Feeding and medical, those are all parts of it. But ultimately, when Ciro says you can change one person, one child at a time, you can make things better, is because you create opportunity. And I think that that's the message that needs to go out, is that as a cigar community, every time a consumer smokes a cigar, they come together. And in that coming together, aren't we stronger as one worldwide? And I think the message is that as we come together, as we get stronger, it is really important to create worldwide opportunity. Find the people in need. Find out what we can do to give them a step up. And I think that they do. We all sell in multiple countries. We all find this common component that people who are cigar smokers are two things. One, they're rebels, and two, they're passionate. That's a very powerful combination. And I think that that is what should drive us. And I think that as we think about the word opportunity, I think that that's the motivator. And that's the message worldwide, that not only bring people together, but create good things.
Wonderfully said. Luciano.
Well, what I would like to say is that who is watching right now, remember to send a message of what is behind this product that we do. There is a lot of passion, of course, love, but there's a lot of sacrifice also here. There are a lot of communities that depend on what we do. And also, I think the most important message was already said by you, Reinhard, which is action, and what Alan just pointed out as well. I like the combination of being a rebel and passion. I think this is definitely a very important driving force that I believe unites us globally. The love for the cigar, but also I wish every to everybody, when they put the cigars in their mouth, when they're smoking the cigars, they remember that it is possible for you to enjoy the cigar, enjoy the conversation you have, enjoy the momentum, but never lose sight of the humanity of people that are behind this product. There's a lot of sacrifices from every single step, from the sales team that work their ass off to also provide for their families and also to make sure the cigar gets to the hands of the consumer. It's about the manufacturers, about the distribution, it's about the business planning, but also it's about the rollers, the bunchers, the guy who sort tobacco, Maria, who actually sometimes spend the entire day just kind of wetting the floor because we need to keep the humidity a little higher, and sometimes it's so dry that the equipment it's not enough. Or the girl who is actually swiping the floor to clean, the leftovers of the tobacco. Everybody involved in the manufacturing, in the fields. That's a lot of sacrifice. That's a lot of passion here. It's not like a machine who is making, anything. It's like human beings making it. That's what makes it different. It's not like a machine you can buy. It will produce the same result as a premium cigar. It needs hands, passion, intelligence involved. And I believe that the most powerful message that should unite in the entire humanity is to value humanity, value who we are. And I'm proud to be in this panel with people that have that share that same agreement, the same knowledge. I'm very, very thankful for today. Thank you, Reinhard, for putting this together into PCA. And it was a great opportunity to talk about very important things, and a great opportunity to see old friends that I haven't seen in a while.
Luciano, Menedez, many thanks for your wonderful words. Mr. Cascella, thank you for your contribution and being on this panel with us.
But
Rubin,
Reinhard, I want to take the opportunity to first of all thank you for inviting me to this panel, but also I would like to thank the more than 13,000 people that support the cigar family. They are very important for this project. The retailers, brick and mortars, everybody that when they go to see that reality, that vision that Carlito and Eric has, that today is a reality, that they always support us, not just with money, with their time, also with their passion, with their heart. I want to thank them because if we are strong, if we're together, we are stronger, and we need to keep together. Thank you.
And also to Rubin, many thanks and joining us for this very important message and this important panel. Gentlemen, it was a pleasure to share this experience with you, and we will continue the program for today with two further keynote addresses. First of all, by Mr. Victor Bisono Hassa, the Minister of Industry, Trade and SMEs of the Dominican Republic, which will be in Spanish with English subtitles, swiftly followed by the words of the Ambassador to the United States, Luis Fernando Suazo of Honduras. So please enjoy the following two keynote addresses from the gentlemen.
Miembros de la Premium Cigar Association, PCA, señores senadores y congresistas, señores productores, comercializadores, importadores y exportadores de cigarros de la República Dominicana y de la región, amigos todos. Agradezco sinceramente la invitación a esta primera cumbre de política internacional organizada por la Premium Cigar Association, PCA, que tenemos la certeza se convertirá en un espacio idóneo para intercambiar informaciones sobre la industria del tabaco, su importancia para nuestras economías, así como su rol en la creación de empleos y en el fenómeno de la estabilidad económica y política de nuestro país y de la región. Como muchos de ustedes ya conocen, en República Dominicana el tabaco no es solo un importante producto de exportación o un generador de riquezas al país. Es una manifestación intrínseca de nuestra cultura, parte importante de la historia dominicana. Es un producto insignia de nuestro país, un verdadero sello que representa la más alta calidad de nuestra tierra y un testimonio de la capacidad de trabajo de miles de dominicanos. Todo esto, en adición a lo que ha significado la industria de tabaco para la recuperación económica dominicana ante el impacto de la pandemia del COVID-19. Pero así como dice una reconocida frase en la cultura americana, la prueba está en el pudín. Pues aquí compartimos algunos datos para su información. Para agosto del 2021, el sector tabaco genera en República Dominicana un total de 40.168 empleos directos. Con estas 168.000 personas que trabajan en más de 100 empresas instaladas en nuestro país, representando aproximadamente el 23% de todo el trabajo de zona franca, uno de los principales empleadores de la República Dominicana. Desde enero a agosto del 2021, las exportaciones de cigarros han aumentado un 65% comparado con el mismo periodo de 2020, pasando de 500 millones de dólares a unos 824 millones de dólares, un importante aumento de 324 millones de dólares en apenas un año. De mantenerse esta tendencia creciente, esperamos exportar unos 1.200 millones de dólares para el 2021, lo que convertiría al cigarro como el producto más exportado de la República Dominicana. Las zonas francas representan un 60% de las exportaciones totales del país y el cigarro representa a su vez aproximadamente un importante 18% del total de las exportaciones de las zonas francas. El tabaco impacta positivamente en el área rural de nuestro país, lugar donde se cultiva el tabaco y que en otras economías de la región son las áreas con mayor necesidad de empleo y las que provocan una mayor presión migratoria. En adición a las 4.168 personas que trabajan directamente en las empresas de manufactura de tabaco, son más de 40.000 personas que trabajan directamente en el cultivo de tabaco en distintas zonas rurales del país y sumando hasta 120.000 empleos indirectos adicionales en este sector. Aún así, el Build Back Better Act, proyecto de ley que actualmente se debate entre legisladores de ambas alas políticas del Congreso norteamericano, incluye, entre otras disposiciones, el Tobacco Tax Equity, el cual incrementa el peso impositivo a nuestras exportaciones del tabaco y sus derivados en hasta un 600%, creando un desafiante escenario para este sector y una posible crisis sin precedente en nuestra economía. Tal incremento impositivo a las importaciones de tabaco y sus derivados no solo perjudicará a nuestra economía, también ha de tener un impacto similar en otros países miembros del DERECAFTA. En nuestro caso específico, hemos anticipado que nuestras exportaciones de tabaco, así como de cigarros elaborados a mano, como los hechos a máquina, se reducirán en alrededor de 650 millones de dólares en un primer año y que perderíamos más de 40.000 valiosos empleos directos en este importante sector, tanto en las empresas de manufactura como en los cultivos del tabaco, en adición a más de 60.000 empleos indirectos que también estarían en riesgo. Esta pérdida de oportunidades, principalmente en las zonas rurales, tiene todo el potencial para provocar un éxodo migratorio descontrolado, no solo desde las zonas rurales hacia las zonas urbanas de nuestros países, sino también a que nuestra gente busque oportunidades en otros países a cualquier costo y bajo cualquier circunstancia, dando espacio a que esas recientes escenas de caos que hemos visto en la frontera de nuestros países se conviertan en incidentes frecuentes, la punta de un iceberg de una crisis migratoria sin precedente en nuestra región y en los mismos Estados Unidos. Mi intención no es promover un panorama inquietante, más bien llamar la atención de nuestro aliado y principal socio regional con el cual mantenemos una dinámica balanza comercial y específicamente dirigirme a los legisladores que actualmente evalúan múltiples opciones para aprobar el referido proyecto de ley, con el fin de que consideren cómo un impuesto de este tipo afectaría la estabilidad económica, política y social en la República Dominicana, país que muestra en estos momentos un avance significativo en el combate del COVID-19 que constituye una democracia resiliente en la región, un aliado probado de los Estados Unidos y un socio estratégico en el Caribe. Es muy posible que miembros de la Cámara de Representantes, al redactar esta propuesta, no tuviesen información precisa respecto al impacto negativo que la misma tendría en toda la cadena de abastecimiento de la producción de cigarros y el hecho de que la industria tabacalera dominicana ha desarrollado una importante y dinámica estructura para la producción de cigarros, la cual abarca desde la finca de tabaco en el norte del país, la fábrica de Santiago y la Romana, donde miles de artesanos elaboran los más finos cigarros del mundo, llegando hasta la puerta de Miami, puerta de entrada de un producto elaborado por manos que sustentan nuestras familias, nuestras comunidades y en consecuencia a nuestro país. Dicho incremento desconoce además que los cigarros, tanto los elaborados a manos como los hechos a máquina, son productos especiales con características de manufactura y patrones de consumo muy específicos, los cuales históricamente han diferenciado el tratamiento regulatorio impositivo para estos productos. En ese sentido, quedamos a la orden desde el Ministerio de Industria, Comercio y MIPYME de la República Dominicana para coordinar esfuerzos de la mano con nuestros amigos en el Senado y de manera especial con nuestros aliados en el Comité de Finanzas del Senado, con la única intención de mitigar los flujos migratorios, proteger la paz social, salvaguardar los empleos dignos en una zona rural y mantener la estabilidad económica de la República Dominicana en particular y de la región en general. Muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wish to thank the Premium Cigar Association for convening this event to discuss cultural and economic importance of the art of cigar making. It is an honor to be with you all and to share this space with so many other distinguished panelists. First, let me begin by saying that Honduran tobacco is recognized worldwide for its quality. Our cigars have been positioned as one of the best internationally. In 2016, the cigar or artisanal product of tasting twist tobacco leaves was decreed as an intangible cultural heritage of the Republic, in testimony of the contribution that this more than a century-old industry makes in highlighting the identity of exports products recognized and demanded worldwide by its quality, excellence, and origin. Also, for its contribution to social and economic development through the expansion of the economic activity and job creation in the country. This comes from more than a century-old tradition. In 1765, the Spanish crown established the Real Factoría del Tabaco, the first tobacco factory near Santa Rosa de Copan. It was responsible for setting prices, for seed distribution, and for its commercialization. This allowed the thriving of the industry in the region. Most recently, in the 60s, the industry had another push by the arrival of expert Cuban cigar makers and growing of Cuban variety seeds. There are more than 250 brands of cigars made in Honduras, and at least 12 of them have been recognized in the international magazines like Cigar Aficionado, the French magazine L'Amateur du Cigare, the Italian magazine The Cigar Lover, and Cigar Journey of Germany, granting them several awards over the year. We are sure that the quality of the Honduran cigar will continue to be recognized worldwide, both for the purity of the tobacco and for the fineness in the final finish of the cigars. The sophisticated and exotic tobacco blends will continue to surprise the demanding and select world of lovers of the taste of the millenary smoke of tobacco. One of the very particular and kind characteristics of handmade cigars is that they actively generate the existence of other related businesses, such as carpentry, printing, transportation, and others, involving a whole community. Honduran wood boxes, for example, compete with internationally renowned artistic creations. The activity is mainly located outside the two economic hubs of the country and offers formal employment in semi-rural communities, preventing internal displacement and, in consequence, prevents irregular migration, as the industry benefits more than 100,000 people and projects a very positive image for the country. Around 70% of the national production is concentrated in the eastern region of the country, and 15% in the departments of Olancho, Francisco Morazan, and the rest in Copan. 90% of the manufacturing happens in the eastern region, especially in the department of El Paraíso, where some of the best and most awarded factories in the world are. The production of cigar has a very high content of specialized and artisan labor, since to make a cigar you need more than 200 pairs of hands and 2 years of labor required. The handmade cigar industry in Honduras is an artisanal activity composed of 3 sectors. First, the agricultural phase. Second, the benefit of the mill or the mill. And third, the factories. This process can take up to 12 months or 24 months in eminently artisanal industry. This industry creates around 40,000 direct jobs, mostly employing women, and 60,000 indirect jobs. Today, Honduran cigars compete internationally and have earned the image of excellence, generating millions of dollars in exports. The main destination of cigar export, 98%, is to the US. Up until July 2021, cigar exports generated $71 million, $31.4 million more than in 2020, due to the greater demand, high quality, handmade tobacco products, particularly this time to the United States of America. This data is particularly important in the COVID pandemic context, and also which has caused an economic impact in Honduras and in the rest of the world. But in the case of Honduras, we have also had to deal with the aftermath of 2 back-to-back hurricanes last November, which left a devastating impact in our economy, infrastructure, and in the lives of many Hondurans. Considering all this, we are grateful for the chance to talk about the importance of this industry in Honduras and hope to raise awareness of the potential impacts decisions around international commerce and local tax can have around the livelihood of the entire communities in our country, which we will contradict our shared priorities of creating economic opportunities for all Honduras in order to address the root causes of migration.
Reinhard, wow, that was powerful session. Several
Absolutely.
sessions in a row.
I just saw a comment on Facebook that this was a long segment, and it takes quite a bit of dedication and effort to follow along with all the panels and the keynote speeches and addresses. But people are still watching and excited, and I'm just mesmerized by what we've experienced. And just from my heart, I cannot say thank you enough for what this has been. And at the beginning, I said it's a message of unity, strength, and a shout out from the global cigar community that is very important and close to my heart.
Absolutely. I think it was interesting watching all the comments come in and see where people were watching the summit from all different walks of life. And, we talk about the cigar lounge is the great equalizer where people from any race, creed, religion, political affiliation, job can come together and share a conversation, and they're just people, one person to the next, having that conversation. And that's what we saw encapsulated today by some of the leaders and policymakers in this. We really appreciate everybody joining us. Reinhard, you co-hosting this with us as the Light 'em Up Lounge, and for really adding legitimacy and the visibility of this summit through all of your listeners and your followers. And we know that we're going to do a lot more in the future on this topic. As I mentioned in my remarks, we plan on doing something in person to have people come together. That was the original intention for this one. But we know with some of the restrictions with the pandemic, with travel, we thought it would be better to test it through this virtual format. And I think it was very interesting because there was discussion whether we want to do it at all or wait until 2022. And I'm glad that the decision was made to have this virtual event. This was the appetizer, and we're ready for the entree when it comes to 2022 for a international policy summit, which will be our second annual.
Most definitely. What I would like to add is I'm particularly fascinated and grateful that this is a global effort and that we are trying to bring the people from the cigar community closer, not just within the United States, not just in Europe, but truly on a global level. And we all know and see on a daily basis that the industry and our passion for premium cigars is challenged. And we need to make sure that we speak with one voice and one language, because we heard it throughout the day over and over again that the cigar is a uniting element and it brings us together. And what we all share is the passion and the love for the product and the people behind. And thus, it is so important that we stay true to that statement and the word of the family of the leaf. And I truly hope that people could experience that today, that it is truly a global family, and we all need to come together and be united by our passion, our commitment, and our love for the people that bring the finest cigar experiences to us. And that's what I hope we could achieve today, and plant the seed in a rich soil for a wonderful plant to blossom further down the road of those efforts of all of us coming together.
Absolutely. And if for all the viewers, if you could share this with throughout your networks, get more visibility. We heard some very powerful messages, some very unique messages. The keynotes at the end and the interconnectedness of relating, and even in the first and second panels, relating the premium cigar industry to current U.S. policy and vice versa. Those are active things that we're working on, and your input and your reach and your ability to get that out there to like-minded folks, your friends, family, and colleagues is very important to the Premium Cigar Association and the industry at large. So we greatly appreciate that. And I really wanted to thank everybody for joining us and our team, our staff here, for getting the speakers, along with Reinhard, Patrick Anderson, who works on our federal government affairs team, Glynn Loope on our state affairs team, and Ryan Parada, everybody, and Aaron Holland on marketing and communications. It really was a great team effort, and we can't thank everybody enough for joining us and putting this together. So we will see you all soon. Reinhard, I'm sure that you and I will cook up another crazy idea and work on getting it implemented. But for now, I'm going to enjoy a premium cigar.
And with that, light them up. And to everybody out there, you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you, Joshua. It was my pleasure and honor.
Thank you, Reinhard.